All right, so now I am going to go ahead and show you guys how to do some of these problems on IXL. And I actually love this system of equations because I got a lot of emails from you guys about equations like this. So here it says solve the system of equations by graphing. So first graph the equations and then type the solution. So the first equation is y equals x minus 4. The second equation is y equals negative x plus 2. So click to select points on the graph. So if I scroll down, you'll see that IXL actually does two different colors for the two equations. So we have blue for the first equation and orange for the second equation. So we're going to have to click on whichever equation we are graphing. And then if you guys remember from the first YouTube video, where these two lines intersect is going to be my solution. So they'll intersect at one point and I will type up the coordinates to that point here. So please open up to your math binder to page 46. I'm going to try to change the color. I'm going to start with the very first equation, y equals x minus 4. So I'm going to write it out, y equals x minus 4. So the very first step on page 46 is to identify the slope m and the y-intercept b. Now, technically the slope, I like to think of it as the number in front of the x and b as the number by itself. Now, there is no number in front of the x. However, we can imagine that there's an invisible 1. And there technically is because there's just one x there. So I'm going to write down that my m is 1 and my b is technically negative 4 because we think of that minus sign like a negative. Now looking at the sub-step on page 46, the number for m should be a fraction because we need to rise and run. So I'm going to put a 1 under. And you can do that with any number. If it's not a fraction, you just put a 1 under it. So that tells me that I am going to rise one time and then run one time. That's my rise over run. Now, step 2 tells me that I need to plot b on the y-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm on the blue one. B is negative 4, so I'm going to plot that on the y-axis. Now you'll notice that IXL is already trying to make a line. But looking at step 3 on page 46, we're going to plot the additional points using our slope m, which once again was 1 over 1. Now this is a positive number, so I'm looking at the positive sign that we have on page 46, which tells me I can rise up and run right. So I'm going to go up 1, right 1 from this point. So up 1, right 1, and it automatically makes the line for you. And if you guys notice, you could keep going up 1, right 1, and you keep landing on the line. Up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. So that's the first equation. Now looking at the second equation, the slope is going to be kind of similar, except now we have a negative x plus 2. Once again, there is one negative x, so I could put an invisible 1 there. So my slope is negative 1, and my b is 2. Looking at the sub-step on page 46, for step 1, we're going to make the number for slope into a fraction, because that's going to tell me I am going to rise one time and then run one time. However, my slope is negative. Now, step 2, I am going to plot b on the y-axis. So b is 2. Click on 2 on the y-axis. Once again, this is the y-axis here. And because my slope is negative now, looking at step 3 on page 46, I'm looking at the negative sign. You guys notice it says rise up and run left. Because it's a negative, we're going to rise up 1 and run 1 to the left. Now notice that the lines actually intersect here at this point. And that point, let me go ahead and use green. That point there, the coordinates are 3, negative 1. So 3, negative 1. And I don't know why I'm writing it when I could just type it over here. So where these two lines intersect is 3, negative 1. Press enter. And that was absolutely correct. So I'm going to go ahead and do another example. Let me just go ahead and try and erase this as much as I can. Okay, so it's the same concept again. We are going to solve the system of equations by graphing. So first graph the equations and then type the solution. So the first equation is y equals negative 3x minus 5. And the second equation is y equals 3x plus 1. Now I do notice that these slopes look kind of similar, except one's negative 3 and one's positive 3. So I'll get into that next. So for the first equation, we have y equals 3x minus 5. So y equals, negative 3x minus 5. Step 1, identify the slope m and the y-intercept b. So again, m is the number that's always with x, so it's technically negative 3. And then b is negative 5. Now, looking at the sub-step, we always want our number for slope to be a fraction. So if it's not, you just put a 1 under it. And this tells me that I'm going to rise 3 and then run 1. Next step, step 2, plot b on the y-axis. I'm going to plot b, which is negative 5 on the y-axis. So negative 5 on the y-axis is here between negative 4 and negative 6. And now, next step, plot additional points using your slope m. Now, please be careful here because this is a negative. So that tells me that I'm going to rise up 3 and then run 1 to the left. Again, you can look at the negative sign on step 3 to see how to rise and run. So I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1 to the left. That's the first equation. Now the second equation is y equals 3x plus 1. Now here, same step, we're going to identify our slope, which is 3, the number in front of x, and b, which is the number by itself. The slope, we always need it to be a fraction, so I'm going to put a 1 under it, and this tells me that I'm going to rise 3 and run 1. Step 2 is to plot b, which is 1, on the y-axis. So 1 is right there. And then because this is a positive slope, I'm looking at the positive sign under step 3. That tells me to rise up 3 times and then run 1 to the right. So up 3, right 1. And now notice that they intersect here at this point. Let me go ahead and use green for that. They intersect here at this point there, which the coordinates for that point are -1, -2. So the solution is where they intersect. So they intersect at -1, -2. And again, that is my solution. Ooh, okay. I'm going to go ahead and do this one because I know I'm going to get a lot of questions on this because of the second equation. I don't understand why these don't erase when I press enter. All right. Y equals 3x minus 3, and then y equals 3. Now notice there's no mx on this second line, which I'll get into. So I'm going to go straight in with the first equation. I guess I was still on that. Let me change it to orange-ish. This is a dark orange. So the first equation is y equals 3x minus 3. So again, same steps. Step 1, identify the slope m, which is the number in front of x. So it is this 3 right here. And the b, it's technically -3 because we think of that minus sign like a negative. Substep, we always want the number for m should be a fraction. So we put a 1 under. And this again tells me I'm going to rise 3 and then run 1. So step 2, we're going to plot b on the y-axis. So b was -3. So -3 is here. And now we're going to use our slope, which is positive. So rise up 3 times and then run 1 to the right. So up 3, right 1. 2, 3, and then right 1. And that's my first line. Now the second line, it's a whole nother story. We never really got into these because of the circumstances that occurred. So I'm going to try my best to explain this. So y equals 3. Now, there is no mx. So this technically means that my slope is 0 because there's no mx. There's no number there with an x because there's not even an x there. Now, if you guys please quickly flip to page 44 and look at the third graph where we have a 0 slope. As you guys can see on page 44, a 0 slope line is going to be a horizontal line. Okay, so that's already a clue of what my line is going to look like. Now the b is the number by itself, and here we have that 3 all by itself, so I am going to plot b on the y-axis. So b on the y-axis, so 3. And then looking at page 44, again, my slope is 0 because there's no mx there, so I'm just going to do a horizontal line. Now if you wanted to, which I'm going to do it, you guys can see there that they cross here at this point, which is 2, 3. But just to really emphasize it, I'm going to actually just do my horizontal line with the point on the orange line. And now you could clearly see that the 2 lines intersect. Let me change it to green. here at this point, which again, the coordinates for that point are 2 for x and 3 for y. So the solution is 2, comma 3. All right. Hope this helped.